In this Figma tutorial, let's take a look at how to group layers. So first off, if you click and drag on any of your objects out here on your canvas, you're going to be able to select a bunch of them, right-click them, and then find group selection if you'd like. That's Command G or Control G if you're on PC. Now right below group selection, it also says frame selection. You see, frames are kind of like a group of objects, except a frame has these different properties you can apply to it. But let's talk about them as if they're groups. If we look in our layers panel, all of our layers are essentially the objects and assets that we have in our document. So yeah, we could select them holding Command or Control if you're on PC to select a certain number of layers or multiple layers. Then you could right-click them and group that selection, similar to how we just showed you a second ago. Now, if you group that selection, it creates a group of layers. We can then toggle this down and see all of the objects that were in that selection prior. And of course, this group will move around together and all that. You could even select this group, select other objects, and group those together. Well, yeah, right here. I was going to say, it says ungroup, so you could ungroup that group that we have selected in there, but we can also group this selection together. Now, when you have a frame selected, there's a little different thing that happens here. You see, I could group this selection. And so this is group 2. You can see these assets out here. Let's just go ahead and group everything that's out there all together. We'll group that. So this is like a frame or a group inside of a group inside of a group now. But they're all grouped together, so you kind of organize that. Now, if I have a frame selected, something to know about frames is that they clip whatever's inside of them. Now, that's not 100% the case. I could select this frame and tell it not to clip the contents. So if you turn that off, you will see anything that goes outside the frame or sits outside the frame, even if it's organized inside the frame in your layers panel. Generally, you clip the contents, don't have to. In this case, if you have it clipped, and let's say we take frame 2, and we look at group 3, which is contents outside of the frame, and we right-click that and then group that selection, what happens is the frame and the grouped elements are in a group together rather than a frame together. So anytime you group a selection, you're actually creating a group and not a frame. But if you wanted that to still be the frame and you wanted these objects to be inside the frame, essentially, then instead of grouping them, what you would do is drag group 3 into this frame. Now they're going to disappear. Why? Because we have frame 2 set to clip the content to the boundary of the frame. Let's say we uncheck that. Now we can see everything outside of that frame, even though frame 2 is still, even though group 3, I should say, is still inside of frame 2 within our layers panel, you can still see the objects outside of it. So that's 2 ways you can kind of control that, if you will. And then, of course, inside this, you can toggle down all these groups, and you have this layer organization of layers grouped together here in your layers panel. So that allows you to really clean up your layers panel when you have tons of tiny objects out here. And then you can create frames, which are areas of grouped things together, right? Frames also create organization. So if it makes more sense to have a frame and not a group, then I would create a frame around whatever that group of elements are. The other thing you can do is the frame. If you want to use the properties of a frame, it kind of depends here. You can create a frame that doesn't have a background. So I'm pressing the F key to create a frame. I'm going to create a frame that's bigger than everything. I'm going to put everything in a single frame. So I'm going to click and drag, larger than all the objects. All the objects are going to be included in this frame 3. When I let go, it's going to look weird because we have a white background. So I'll go over here to the fill and remove the fill on frame 3. Now we have no fill, but over here in our layers panel, frame 3 includes literally everything. So you could give this a name if you wanted to, but inside of this frame, is everything else. And that's maybe not a way that you want to group things together. Maybe you'd rather just put them in a group, but it's also an option. And that's how you can group layers here in Figma.